Welcome to episode 13 of True Untold Nightmares. I'm your host, Chris Moss, and today I'm going to be reading 4 Dogman encounters from one of Linda Godfrey's books, Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. Now, I did this back in episode 11 because I haven't received any new encounters yet. So if you haven't checked out episode 11, go check that out. And just like episode 11, I will be providing a link where you can buy the book down in the description below. And if you haven't read this book or any of Linda's books, I highly recommend them. Go get them. And if you have a family member who believes in the paranormal and loves to read, any book of hers will make a great gift. Before I start the encounters, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Dark Waters for not only sharing episode 11 on his channel. You really didn't have to do that, so that means a lot. And thank you for sending positivity and encouragement my way in the comments. And last but not least, I wanted to clear up a mistake I made in episode 12 when I discussed the father hanging himself and his dogs, along with his dogs, and then the son that kills the mother. I made it seem like those 2 incidents came from 2 different families in that house, but Kelly cleared it up for me. It all happened in the same family. So the dad that hung himself along with his dogs was the father of the son who killed his mother. A messed up family. But I also posted on the video on the screen the screenshots of the news reports of from the son killing his mother. Finally, what you've been waiting for, let's get into these encounters. This first encounter takes place in Zion, Illinois, and a hiker, unfortunately, comes face to face with a dogman. In May 1987, a man who wishes to be known only by his first name, Alan, moved from Chicago to a quiet area of Zion near the Lakeshore Park and discovered he missed the city's street noise at bedtime. One warm evening, he decided to walk a mile or so toward the lake on State Highway 173, also known as 21st Street, which led to a wooded path through the North Dunes Nature Preserve, and then to the shore. He arrived at his destination, spent a few minutes admiring the moonlit lake, smoking a few cigarettes, and then headed back into the woods. About halfway through the wooded area, the path darkened, and Alan began to feel weary, as if there was some unknown presence nearby. Scanning the path ahead of him for other people, he was able to make out a dark, upright figure. It turned its head, revealing a profile that Alan immediately knew was not human. The figure stood at least 7 feet tall, had a long canine muzzle, broad shoulders, and long arms, with what appeared from its silhouette to be pointed ears flattened on top of its head. Alan described its posture as stooped. He estimated it was several hundred yards away. Even worse than the creature's intimidating appearance was the way it behaved, which Alan interpreted as teasing. It stepped out of Alan's sight but continued to follow him through the darkened wooded area. Alan could hear it running through the brush on 2 feet. He had almost reached a cleared area when it stepped out on the path ahead of him again, only closer. Alan stopped, of course, and the creature again stepped into the brush and kept pace as Alan hurried to where the path ended at the Metro Railroad tracks at the park's west boundary. He put some distance between the path and himself before daring to turn around and look behind him, only to see the creature standing there watching, as if to be sure Alan had left his territory. This thing knew that at any time it could have ended me, said Alan, and he felt that the creature was making it his business to make sure Alan realized that fact. It's one thing to see a dogman from a distance or to be in your car and pass one up on the interstate or highway while it's eating roadkill, or to see one cross the street in front of you while you're driving. But to take a night stroll just to enjoy nature, clear your head, enjoy the moon, and one of these things basically heard you out of his territory by showing itself to you, then dipping off into the brush, and then showing itself to you again, and then dipping off into the brush, just to let you know, I could take you out at any moment. You're nothing to me. It gives me goosebumps. It really does, because I have nothing but respect for these eyewitnesses who see these things and who has these things chase them and who sees these things like really, really close, I have nothing but respect, because to experience that fear, and then to share your story, courageous is an understatement. My heart goes out to all of the eyewitnesses, especially the ones who have stories scarier than this, but refuse to come forward and tell anybody. Either one, they just don't want to think about it, or two, they have the fear of being ridiculed, or three, maybe the men in black, for lack of a better term, got to them first and threatened them not to say anything. We'll never know why the people who won't share their stories won't, but my heart goes out to everybody who's ever saw one and or dealt with one. I believe I got a fraction of that experience when I went hiking, and I told that story, I believe, in episode 2. But speaking of goosebumps, this next encounter, I don't know what to make of it, but this next encounter is called Trapped in a Toyota. In 1993, 2 young Oklahoma men had a Dogman come up to their car window while they were talking on a dirt road 5 miles east of Okarche, Oklahoma, a tiny town about 20 miles northwest of Oklahoma City. The driver, Brandon, wrote in his report to me that they had driven to the isolated area to talk and unwind and were sitting in his Toyota with the windows rolled down when he heard a strange noise in the tall grass across the road on his side of the car. No sooner had he turned his head to look than a bipedal black-furred wolf-like creature, whose height Brandon estimated at 7 feet, was bending over to stare into the open window at him, close enough that it was able to place one paw at the top of the window frame and one at the bottom. The car rocked slightly as the creature pressed against it. "This thing was right up in my face," Brandon wrote. "It was black with a very furry head and pointed erect ears. It had its mouth part open, showing me its teeth. They were that of a massive canine. I was so scared my breath went out of me." Brandon said he stared into the creature's red eyes for a heart-stopping moment, feeling that the creature was looking through rather than at him. And then the beast suddenly turned its head as if it heard something in the distance. Brandon felt an instinctive urge to escape. Out of sheer panic, he said, "I tried to climb over my friend to get out of the passenger window, but the seatbelt stopped me." Brandon said at that moment he felt sure the creature was about to bite him, and a thought hit him that its mouth was large enough to take out his entire left shoulder. As he fearfully glanced back at the window, however, he was amazed and relieved to see the creature had vanished. It was not visible in the side mirror either. His friend had been looking out the passenger side window and noticed only that the car rocked and that Brandon had made a jerky lunge toward him. The creature was gone by the time he turned his full attention to what was happening to Brandon. By then, Brandon's hands were shaking so hard that he had to ask his friend to turn the key in the ignition to leave the place. He added, "When we were pulling away, I was asking my friend, 'Do you see it? Do you see it?' I was expecting this thing to chase us and wasn't comfortable until we were several miles away and at over 70 miles per hour. To this day, I can't go in the country anymore, especially at night." Brandon added that his friend freaked out from his behavior and has since refused to drive anywhere with him. "I know from the size of this thing that it could have killed me quickly if it wanted to," said Brandon. "I could tell from its eyes that there was intelligence. There wasn't an animal soul in there. I think it was trying to scare us. It sure worked." Brandon said he did not find any scratches around the window where the creature had placed its paws, and that he did not recall any odor associated with the creature. He added that the incident happened less than half a mile from a huge cattle feedlot, and surmised that the prospect of fresh beef may have been what lured this creature to that location. The area east of Okarche is dotted with a handy supply of ponds and creeks, and from the late 1860s to mid-1880s was part of the famed Chisholm Trail used for driving cattle to Texas. When I first read this encounter, the first thing that popped into my head is the scene from Aliens when the alien gets really close to Ripley's face. And then my other thought is that, how did the friend not see this thing? The friend only felt the car rock a little bit, and then they felt when Brandon tried to jump over to their side. So I'm going to infer and theorize two things about this encounter for the friend not to notice this dog man. Is that one, this dog man was super quiet. Like when approaching and leaving the car, super quiet for a thing of that size. The second thing is that this encounter happened in the matter of seconds, not minutes. Because I feel like the longer this would have taken place, I feel like the friend would have seen it or would have caught a glimpse of it. And if this encounter did take place over minutes, I would say it was under 3. That's my theory. I could be wrong, but just based off of the fact that the friend never noticed it, just feels like this encounter probably took place under 3 minutes. But that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. But honestly, this one and the hiking story, I cannot imagine. Just chilling in your car with the window rolled down, and then you look over and this thing's face is in your rolled down window. I just can't imagine. I feel like if it had an odor, maybe the friend would have noticed it, but I know this whole situation has to be very, very frustrating for Brandon, because to witness something and your friend who's sitting right next to you in a small space to not also witness it is just, and then for his friend not to want to ride with him anymore, it's a very annoying and frustrating situation. Cause it's like, why me? It's like, why didn't this thing just jump in front of the car to where we both could have seen it? The other scary thought is that this thing's mouth was big enough to take off his whole shoulder. If it wasn't for the seatbelt, this thing could have snatched him straight out of the car, and the friend probably would have never noticed until it was too late. Now for this next encounter, 2 young women who went out for a late night snack get chased by a dog man. In November 1989 in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, 2 young women decided they were hungry at about 1 a.m. and decided to walk several blocks to a white hen pantry, the only place that was open so late in the evening. The street known as Motel Strip would have been bustling during tourist season, but seemed quiet and deserted as the pair began their walk to the intersection that led to the downtown area. They were approaching a Kentucky Fried Chicken at their intersection when they heard what sounded like an animal breathing and growling heavily behind them. The 2 women were afraid to turn and look, but when they finally did, the street light revealed a figure that they at first took for a creepy homeless person in a fur coat with a hood. They soon realized it was no human, however, and began to run. The creature's arms were held straight out in front of it as it ran toward them on 2 legs. Its postures were hunched, and its arms moved as if propelling the biped. Although the arms never touched the ground, they could not see a muzzle, but the arms ended in definite paws rather than hands. Its dark fur was long and matted, and it ran quickly, if a bit unsteadily, in a semi-upright posture. The head seemed almost human-like, said the woman I interviewed, except it was covered in fur and had pointy ears. She noticed that its thighs were very muscular and estimated its height at about 6 feet. It continued to growl loudly as it followed them until they reached the Kentucky Fried Chicken, which was closed, and then the creature suddenly made a 90-degree turn and veered off into a nearby thicket. It tore right through it, she said. A human would be hurt. The woman said she had kept her story mostly to herself all these years, and that she wished her name to be kept confidential because of her husband's professional status. The young women made it safely home with their snacks without further incident. Now for this last encounter, an eyewitness witnesses dogmen coming from a graveyard. This encounter takes place in Kenosha, Wisconsin. 27-year-old Rick Renzulli was enjoying his early morning drive to his job as a concrete finisher around 5 a.m. in October 1984. When he came to a curve on County Highway ML, he was already driving well below the speed limit, having just gone through the intersection at Green Bay Road, and that was a good thing since a large and speedy creature burst suddenly from the side of the road and ran directly in front of his 78 Caravan Suburban. To his astonishment, a second beast followed, identical to the first except slightly smaller. The area from which they had exploded contained a small cemetery. Both creatures were on all fours, but stood higher than the hood of Renzuli's Suburban. He estimated the first creature was 7 to 9 feet long, and the second was about 3/5 as big as the first. He caught a glimpse of the first creature's eye shine as the beast passed his headlights. He said that look the thing had seemed mean and angry. He noted that the creatures had thick, mane-like fur running down the back of their necks and spines, but he couldn't tell whether they had tails. Their snouts seemed longer than a normal dog's muzzle. I didn't think of a werewolf, he said. I thought of evil. It was like something out of a movie. Renzulli immediately locked his door, but the creatures were moving so fast that they were already across the road by then. He told his wife about them, but said she kept trying to explain the creatures as something ordinary. Renzulli kept the story to himself until 2003, when he saw my composite drawing of witness descriptions in The Beast of Bray Road. Your picture brought back my memories right away, he said. I clear as hell saw it. When I saw your picture, I thought, God dang, that looks like what I saw. Was it the Beast of Bray Road? Kenosha is about 50 miles east of Elkhorn, within roaming ability of any large predator. And Renzulli's sighting occurred 3 years after Marv Kirschnick's experience near Bray Road. Therefore, it's possible, but not provable, that they were the same animal. Possible but not provable applies to most of the speculative ideas in this book. However, it does to the question of whether the two road beasts had any connections to that little cemetery. But whether Renzulli saw church grimes or mega dogs, he certainly saw something very weird near a graveyard. Let me know down in the comments your theories and opinions on these 4 encounters that I just read from Linda Godfrey's book, Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. The link to buy the book will be in the description. There will be timestamps in case you got to come back to this video. You can go to the timestamps in the description. Also, join the Facebook group. I forgot to say that. I forgot to say that the last 2 videos. I don't know why, but join the Facebook group. It's up. The link to the Facebook group is in the description as well. Send in your stories. If you know anybody who has encounters, tell them to email me. It can remain anonymous. I take privacy very seriously. As a matter of fact, another thing I forgot to mention, just because you email me your story does not mean it automatically goes to YouTube. It does not automatically become public. If you would like to share your story just to get it off your chest, but you don't want nobody else to know it, I will not share it. Just tell me in the email, please do not share this on YouTube or anywhere else, and I won't. I take privacy very seriously. I take your encounters very seriously. So if you have an encounter and you don't want it to be public, I will not make it public. I will respect your wishes because I know it's easy for people to think of this as entertainment, but this is people's real lives. You know, this stuff is actually happening to people. People are actually seeing these things and people are actually traumatized by these things. So while it's easy, if you've never had an experience, it's easy to get caught up in the entertainment aspect of it, but it's not entertainment. The whole point of my channel is to help people get comfortable with sharing their stories and to give them a voice. So if you also would like to come on the show and tell your story, you can do that as well. And you can do that and remain anonymous at the same time. So also, if you have any questions, I'm an open book. I will be doing a Q&A video soon where I'll be answering questions that I have received since starting this podcast. So if you have any questions for me, you can either email me or you can drop the question down in the comments and I will answer them in the future Q&A video. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you for the support, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.